had to shut it off.
Next time I'll
Go
send
out
it to
of
your
Outlook,
house, Bart.
go back in, and there it was.
Really? Have you ever tried going in on the internet and not just using the app?
My husband wouldn't.
No, I used to. This is resident.
Okay, fine, I'll drop
I
it off
don't
at
like the internet.
Okay, whenever you're
Yeah,
ready.
if you use the web browser, it might be different.
All right, good morning, everyone. If you'll rise and join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. We will call the Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 regular board meeting to order. And we'll start with public comment period. Is there anybody wanting to make public comment this morning? Doesn't look that way, so we'll move on from that. Item 1B, board meeting and agenda for today. Look for approval on that.
No changes.
No changes?
Mr. Chair, move to approve the agenda as printed.
All right, I have a motion by Paul.
Second?
Second by Julie. Any discussion or questions on the agenda today? Hearing none, all in favor of the board meeting agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, consent agenda. Andrew, would you walk us through that?
Absolutely. We have approval of the May 2nd, 2023 board meeting minutes. Approval of the social services, county, and hospital accounts payable. Approval of the 2023 roadside weed and brush spraying quote. Appointment of the Economic Development Authority board member. Approval of the transfer of $41,240.88 from the tax forfeit fund to the county revenue fund. Resolution 2023-15 police officer declaration on a dual position. Resolution 2023-16 adoption of the Meeker County Hazard Mitigation Plan. And that is the consent agenda.
All right, is there any questions for Andrew or anything in that agenda?
Mr. Chair, move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Commissioner Johnson on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Oberg. And that is, we have some resolutions in there, so Corey, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes. All right. Next up, Paul. MCIT.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I have a paper copy.
Like this one, you mean?
Sure, I'd take it.
Thank you. Also pull it up on the screen.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the same as our slides that we got. Okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thanks for letting me be part of your meeting to discuss the 2023 MCIT report to Meeker County. I'm Paul Heiduck, an MCIT risk management consultant, and we typically do these reports every other year to coincide with the election, so welcome to the new commissioners. We haven't done it since 2019 because of the pandemic, so it's actually been 4 years since we made this report to members, and this is my second round of doing reports to county boards, and I've been at MCIT 5 years. As you may be aware, MCIT is a joint powers public entity risk sharing pool and not an insurance company, and as such are responsive to members' needs regarding coverage and services. And back in the 1970s, affordable coverage was almost impossible for public entities to find. And so commissioners got together and said, let's take our insurance money and provide coverage and services directly ourselves. And so 44 years later, here we are with the MCIT board is made up of commissioners, auditors, auditor treasurers, administrators. So they come from where you are, and they manage MCIT with an eye on your needs because your needs are their needs as well. We cover 81 of the 87 counties and over 390 other county-related entities such as soil and water conservation districts, agricultural societies, historical societies, lake improvement districts, and so on. And the 6 counties that we don't cover, Anoka, Dakota, Hennepin, Olmsted, Ramsey, and St. Louis, all self-insure. Meeker County joined MCIT in 1982, so almost at the beginning. You've been a long-time partner, a long-time member of MCIT, sharing and helping in that success. And that 44 years success comes from MCIT's dedication to addressing the changing needs of our members and members' willingness to address the frequency and severity of claims. And I would also add not treating MCIT coverage and services as a commodity. If we flick to the inside pages, on page 2, that blue box near the top, we want to talk about cyber coverage. Cyber coverage in 2023 is a real win, because back in 2022, we were fairly certain that we were not going to be able to provide coverage for members in cyber. And not only are we providing it this year, but it's better than it was in 2022. And there's no separate contribution for it. There's no individual underwriting criteria for members. And those are really the goals. When we set out to create the coverage for 2023 was to make sure that it was good quality coverage, make sure that it fit within our existing contribution structure, and that there were no individual underwriting criteria for members. So really in 2023, cyber coverage is a win-win. The yellow box on the left-hand side is talking about the dividend, and everybody likes to talk about the dividend because it feels a lot like a tax refund. It's kind of fun. In 2022, the dividend was $7 million in total, and that all came from the workers' compensation division. You can see the county total there, but the dividend looks back. So the actuary and the board take a look at the claims that we've already got and those that are still going to trickle in, and our investment returns, and they decide whether that amount of money that we have available is enough to pay those claims, and if it is there any surplus that could be returned to members and ultimately to the public. And there's one sentence in this box that I want to read to make sure that I get it right. MCIT only issues a dividend when it is actuarially sound and fiscally prudent. And that's a really great segue to the rates in the blue box, because the rates are also actuarially determined. So we ask members to provide their exposure information, things like payroll, vehicles, buildings, your budget information, and the actuary takes all of that information and determines what sort of claim activity we're going to see from that. And then they set the rates that way. Now, it would be really nice for the actuary to add a little more so that we can always declare a dividend, but that's not the board's goal. If you go back to what I said on page 1, when MCIT was born because affordable insurance was impossible to find, the board's goal is to have stable long-term rates. So we're not looking to declare a dividend every year, but to have those rates be long-term, stable, so it's easier to budget. So you aren't seeing spikes in your budgets and in your insurance costs because of our lack of keeping a watch on the rates. And we also never want to have to go back to you and say, we need more money to keep the lights on at MCIT. Now, if we flip to page 3, I'm going to talk a little bit about some claims data. And this is aggregate claims data, all of MCIT. It's not just Meeker County, and this is for the last 5 years. The top 2 graphs are workers' compensation. So we're looking at the top 3 departments for workers' compensation claims in frequency, the number of claims, and severity, the dollars that come from those claims. And the 3 departments are sheriff and jail operations, highway, and hospitals and nursing homes. If we look at the severity side where the dollars are, it's the same 3, sheriff and jail operations, highway, and hospitals and nursing homes. If we think about why that might be, those are all 24/7 operations. What they do is often hazardous, so it makes sense that we're getting both a high number of claims and high dollar of claims out of those departments. But an individual member can affect their workers' compensation contribution, as we talk about in that yellow band on the right-hand side, with the workers' compensation experience modification factor. And the way that your workers' compensation contribution is developed is by taking the payroll in every job class and multiplying that payroll times a rate. Every job class has its own rate for workers' compensation coverage. And so the The payroll times the rate gives you the contribution. And if we didn't want to have individual members impact that, that would be the end of it. But we apply this modification factor so that you're either paying more than that base contribution or less based on your experience. And so a modification factor of 1 just means that you're right on the expectation. If it's less than 1, that means you're doing better than expected. And if it's higher than 1, you're doing poorer than expected. And as you can see here, the Meeker County number is a little bit more than 1, and so you're paying a little more than the base contribution by $8,000. And if we look back 4 years, you can see that it's always been either just above 1 or just below. So you're kind of hovering around that middle ground. So there may be opportunities in safety and in reducing claims, both the frequency and the severity of it in workers' compensation. If we move then to the next set of graphs, which is property casualty, here we're looking at the lines of coverage, not the departments. And again, it's still all of MCIT. On the frequency side, we're getting claims from auto, property, and general liability. On the severity side, where the dollars are, getting claims from auto, property, and law enforcement liability. If we dig a little bit deeper into these, we cover 11,600 vehicles, so the fact that statewide we have this big pool of exposure, the fact that we're getting both the number of claims and the dollars out of auto makes some sense. And if you've had to get a vehicle, have body work done, you know that that's gotten very expensive. And we're certainly feeling the effect of that. In property, we cover $7.5 billion statewide. So there again, that's a big pool. And we've had a lot of storm activity over the last few years that goes into those numbers. That makes sense. And then as far as law enforcement liability, Minnesota counties have not been able to escape the nationwide trend in law enforcement liability, and that certainly impacts MCIT as well. On the last page, I want to talk a little bit about services and not so much about claims. Every member has a loss control consultant and a risk management consultant, and for Meeker County, your loss control consultant is Alethea Sheridan. I'm your risk management consultant. And this top picture on the left is talking about our consultation services. What's happening here is this, my colleague Tom, with Wright County and the Wright County Fair Board. Because in Wright County, the county owns the grounds and the buildings, and the fair owns everything else. And so if there were to be a claim there, you'd want to make sure that one of those two entities has their property properly scheduled so that we can pay a claim on it. Because what happens when you have property damage, if it's not scheduled, it's not covered. And we don't want our representatives to have to say that to members. So here Tom is working with the two entities to make sure that everything that's there is covered in one place or the other. If we look down at the picture below that, this is an example of one of our in-person training seminars, and we do webinars and seminars and hybrid trainings on things like our coverage review, our workers' compensation workshop, our risk management workshops. We do presentations on Government Data Practices Act, building a positive safety culture, land use decisions, and recently, actually it was in March, we put one together on cybersecurity for the county attorneys. And this was a hybrid presentation, and where we brought in experts that we use in our cyber coverage and combine them with MCIT's coverage expertise to provide a training program for the county attorneys. And it was very interesting, and I've dealt with cyber a long time, but there was a lot to learn there. In particular, one of the experts took us out to the dark web and showed county data that was just there for sale. Not Minnesota counties, but there was county data that's just sitting there, and it's being offered for sale, and anyone can just go ahead and buy it. So it was kind of scary as well as being very illuminating. The picture in the upper right-hand corner is some of our award-winning awareness and prevention materials, and these happen to be focused on data security as well, the essentials of data security for public entities and our cybersecurity self-assessment. And these two tools are very important in keeping your data safe, because on the one hand, you want to make sure that you have insurance coverage for it, but on the other hand, what you really want is to have your data be safe. And so the data security essentials talks about the role that everyone plays ways in keeping county data safe, because everyone who touches it is involved with it, has a role in keeping it safe. It's not just an IT job, it's not just the administrator's job, it's everyone's job to keep that safe. And one of the ways of evaluating how you're doing at that is with the cybersecurity self-assessment. It's 35 questions that go step by step in each of these critical areas and asks you how close you are to best practice in those areas. And a little sideline to this is that when an underwriter were to look at an individual member or individual company for insurability in cyber, this is the kind of tool that they would use. This is something they would want you to fill out. And so that's what we avoided in 2023. Members didn't have to fill out this kind of a questionnaire, but we don't know in 2024 whether we're going to have that same situation. Unfortunately, it's so dynamic that we don't know what 2024 looks like yet. And so knowing where you are on these 35 questions goes a long way towards showing insurability if we had to go out and ask members to show us where you are with cyber. So having that cybersecurity self-assessment filled out as a best practices tool, number one, to safeguard your data, and number two, to make sure that we can provide coverage in 2024. It's really an essential step in the process. And then the picture below that is talking about MCIT services that you get with your membership, such as the Employee Assistance Program, Minnesota Safety Council, and our boiler and pressure vessel inspection services. And I want to talk a little bit more about the EAP, because the EAP is a risk management tool. When people are not dealing with issues at home or at work, they work better, they're more productive, they're safer, less likely to injure themselves or others or damage property. And we have data that shows that fewer claims come out of members that have a high EAP use, and that they are also, anecdotally, these people that are using EAP aren't filing grievances or having other issues as well. And the county's EAP utilization in 2022 was over 7%, and 4% is considered good. So 7% is really good. And so that you're to be commended for that. And one of the things that the EAP, which is provided by Sand Creek, one of the things they will do if they aren't seeing a lot of utilization is come out and do an orientation to make sure that the word is getting out that the EAP is there. It's a voluntary program. It's totally confidential. You get up to 6 individual visits on any given topic, and it's local. So it's not like you're getting somebody from St. Paul. They're local people who are doing that, helping your employees. And it's part of your MCIT membership, so there's no cost to it. And that it's focused on elected officials, law enforcement personnel, managers, supervisors, employees, and all of their immediate families. So it's pretty broad as well. So that's just an example of the services that come with having an MCIT membership. And then the last section down at the bottom is to answer the question that we often get, which is what can we do to continue to support this process? And using your knowledge of coverage in how you make decisions is a really good first step. For example, going back to cyber, if you had a cyber claim or a cyber incident, that could mean that your systems are a crime scene. And so you want to make sure that you don't do something like, well, let's go to our offsite backup and restore that data right away, because you may need to find whatever tracks are in your system. So reporting that claim to MCIT as soon as possible and allowing us to bring our cyber resources to help you through that process is a great example of using your coverage knowledge and how you make decisions and how you manage what happens in the county. And encouraging your employees to participate in training, particularly safety training, is an excellent step. And if you have time, participate yourselves. It's another great way, because you're paying attention to that area. Your employees will. It's just human nature. What you're focusing on, they'll focus on. And engaging MCIT, what you're doing now, letting me come here and talk about the MCIT program, is a great way to continue to support MCIT going forward. And on behalf of the MCIT board and your MCIT service team, thank you for your continued support of MCIT.
Anybody have any questions for Paul?
Just one. Do you have a team? You have a team that gets involved once there's a cyber attack. Do you have a team that maybe comes out and does things like penetration tests and so forth like that, or has that not been something that's been on the table?
We haven't done that kind of advanced work with penetration tests, for example. We encourage them. We think that's a valuable tool for you to use to see where your systems are. It's one of the cybersecurity self-assessment questions is, do you do penetration tests? So, but it's not something that we have brought as a service, either through MCIT or one of our providers.
Any other questions for MCIT and Paul? All right, Paul, we thank you for coming in today and giving us the update. Appreciate it.
All right.
Up next, Braden.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Braden Pirum, Parks Department. This is Bob Herman, Forest Stockade.
Morning, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
And we're coming here this morning. The Stockade Committee has requested a $15,000 interest-free loan from the Parks Department. It would come out of the fund balance. And it would be paid back over the course of 5 years at $3,000 per year. And this is something we have done several times in the past. It's gone very smooth, no issues whatsoever. And it gives the Stockade Committee a little boost to do some of these building projects that they otherwise typically can't do. And this is in particular due to quite a large collection being donated to the Stockade. And what they want to do is, part of this donation was that these wagons and tools and whatnot were all stored inside to begin with. And so they want them on display for the public and housed as well. So you could maybe speak a little bit on the donation there.
Yeah, well, there's some pictures up on the board. It's a freight wagon from 1890 time period, which is in mint condition, really, really nice. And then a cutter sleigh, a doctor's buggy, and then a double box, grain box with wooden wheels. And then other horse-related equipment. It's kind of a package deal. We're gonna clean out her shed out in her farm and whatever she.
You don't have to take the tires, do you?
I saw that too.
We'll leave that.
For generations.
She didn't clean out the shed ahead of time. Tools are hanging on the wall. That's our time period.
Well, it's cleaning out the shed sometimes. You gotta take it all.
No,
I was just curious.
all the things that are valuable to us.
Don't give her any ideas.
Yeah, I know.
And
See what I do.
this collection is currently in Acton Township, right, on their own farm there?
Yeah.
And so what they would be doing with these funds is build a pool-style building. It'll be period authentic, everything like that, and then it'd be a crushed aggregate floor is what's gonna go in there. 28 feet wide by 56 feet long, and then 10-foot sidewalls. And then all of those tools above those tires there will be displayed along the walls and everything like that.
I knew Wes was on the Meeker County Corn Growers Board with us for many years, so I knew he had different items out there. I didn't know he had that nicest stuff. So
Yeah, it looks
for
like
that,
it's in
he had a lot.
nice shape.
I didn't know how much
For
he
its-
had.
for its
so.
age.
That freight wagon used to be in parades 30 years ago. It has not been off its wagon in the past 30 years. So it's pretty neat to see it sitting up there ready for us to hook onto it,
Okay.
move around out. I was shocked when she offered all this to us. It's very valuable.
Yeah.
Freight wagon is in mint condition and really, really nice.
Will you have signage in the shed then too, when people come for the different Forest City Stockade activities? They'll explain the age of the item and
Yeah.
how it was utilized in its time and, for educational purpose.
We'll work on that. We don't have all the answers. But the main thing is to get all the stuff in there so it's not out in the weather, and then we'll slowly get that stuff all
And their goal is to have this ready for the August rendezvous, so.
Yeah.
So people can enjoy it already this summer. And I believe you typically, there's some volunteers and they're usually staffing some of these buildings. This one
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I'd assume they'd be there to answer questions as
Yes.
well.
All right, any other questions for Braden or Bob?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve an interest-free loan of $15,000 from the Parks Fund balance to the Forest City Stockade Committee to be paid back over 5 years at $3,000 per year.
I have a motion by Commissioner Bredesen
I'll second that motion.
and a second by Commissioner Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much.
Yeah, good luck.
Oh, yeah. We're building right now, so we're on our way.
Ambitious.
Very, very confident.
Yeah.
Well, we'll,
It's a great place. I love it out there, so.
That was a nice gift from
Yeah.
the family. Very nice gift.
Les was a good guy.
I'll give you a call.
thank you, folks.
Thanks, Bob. Andrew, next up.
So, here we have a continuation of discussion from the last meeting regarding the, sentencing to service agreement, extension, which would be for July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2025. One of the questions that was raised at the last meeting that I wanted to address first and foremost, and then we turn it over to our partners from the DOC, is looking at the cost of the program compared to what it would cost for replacement of a full-time staff member. So the cost of the STS program as proposed by DOC is $77,627 per year. We estimate that the cost of a full-time staff member, another maintenance worker in the Parks Department, would be about $62,000 a year. If we were to do seasonal, that would be about $40,000 per year for a 6-month position. Although, as our Parks manager has previously noted, there would be significant benefit in having that full-time position. There would also be a one-time cost or intermittent cost of purchasing vehicle and equipment between $46,000 and $51,000. So there'd be that one-time cost in the first year, and then there's the annual cost beyond that. So it gives you a sense of what the cost difference would be between that. Any questions about that before I turn it over?
Did you also contact other counties?
Yeah, I had a conversation with my counterparts from a number of counties, primarily to the west, southwest, and northwest of us. And what they had seen is that for the counties who continue to have an STS program, they're seeing what we're seeing, which is a decline in the crew population.
Okay.
Crew members.
And then Andrew, did we get clarification too on the numbers on the spreadsheet, or am I jumping a little bit ahead of you?
Sean was going to confirm that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
all
I
right,
have
all right.
additional spreadsheets. I know it's the same as last time, but if anybody wants one, I brought extra copies.
I'll take one.
Okay. I'll just pass it down. There's much. Color this one. So I had a meeting with our department that runs these reports just to get clarification on what some of these numbers mean. I know the total served at the top of the report is a number that corresponds to the total number of participants who are eligible for STS in that quarter. So those numbers can carry over. For instance, if we're looking at Q1 of fiscal year 22, there's 31. If there was an individual who was working on STS and it took him until Q3 to complete, he'd be one of those individuals listed in Q1, 2, and 3. So that's what the total serve refers to. Crew days includes, crew days that are worked to include days that Mary Jean may not have a crew. So a crew day may include crew days that involve just Mary Jean doing the work. The average crew size does not include Mary Jean. So the average crew size is going to be the individuals on crew, not including Mary Jean. However, the hours worked does include Mary Jean. So all of the hours worked we're seeing are hours worked that include crew member hours worked in addition to hours worked by Mary Jean. One of the other topics that kind of came up when I was, just kind of going over what all these numbers mean is they did want to point out that the market value is pretty chronically underestimated across the state for one, our crew members aren't experts in terms of contracting and what it costs to do a job. A lot of times some of our crew members don't exactly know what projects they should be including the market value. So while I can't say or give you any certain numbers of what the estimated market value for all the projects that Mary Jean is doing, one of the things that was made clear to me multiple times is that there's a very high likelihood that the market value of the work that's done, not just in Meeker County, but across all of the STS crews, is more than likely, if not definitely likely, undervalued. Just because a lot of times when crew leaders are entering that information, they might be using like a $12 an hour rate for employees, when the reality is maybe construction workers who, if they were doing that privately, would be paid, north of $20 an hour. So this is an area that is typically not as accurate as we probably like, and it's a point of emphasis with that department to try to get our STS crew leaders trained up to get that to be a more accurate reflection of the work that's done by Mary Jean in the community. One of the other things, a couple other things that kind of came up when I was talking to different people about STS programs. When, if you were going to look at, another employee to kind of replace the STS program, the state does take on a lot of risk with these programs. So, I mean, the state, we cover increases in healthcare costs, we cover increases of cost of living to Mary Jean's wage, we cover maintenance costs on those vehicles. Almost every other year we're replacing lawnmowers and replacing equipment. Those are all costs that the state takes on. So when we're looking at that 75-25 kind of ratio of what this partnership looks like, a lot of those numbers aren't really reflected in there. For instance, Mary Jean had to take multiple medical leaves, and that's one of the reasons we're looking at, even lower numbers than we probably expect. The state is reimbursing the county for those that time lost for Mary Jean, and that's not necessarily a cost that's being pushed onto the county. We've really tried hard to not pass any of these costs on to counties because, and trying to be good partners, we want our STS programs, we stand behind them. We want to continue to see this work done. So we don't want to pass a lot of these extra costs onto our counties. I know in our most recent contract, we passed along no additional increases to the contract. But there are a lot of the fringe costs that the state does take on. Vehicles, we provide Mary Jean with a vehicle, with lawnmower, with equipment, with trailer. It's very common that Mary Jean, just today, she gave me a bill that we'll be paying for repair to the trailer that she had, where there's a lot of these costs that is part of what Mary Jean does in the community that also is not passed on to the county, that the state picks up all of that. I know Mary Jean, she's here today. I know she wants to speak. She also brought additional people, and I do not know what amount of time you guys have. I know she did ask that other people come to kind of speak on her behalf and the work that she does. I can attest that, the last time Mary Jean was out, I received multiple phone calls from, individuals in the community asking, if Mary Jean was available to work. There was, it was very clear that Mary Jean had a heavy presence in, a Lions Club push to get gifts out to children in Meeker County. And that, Mary Jean, she was out during the holiday season, and, she'd kind of become part of that program, and they were looking to see who could kind of fill in the void. There are a lot of things Mary Jean does in Meeker County that probably don't show up on these reports. And, the benefit of having somebody like Mary Jean, and in times like this, probably the downside of having somebody like Mary Jean is she's been here so long that she's kind of just become a big part of the program. I know when I first started as a district supervisor in August, I got a call from a mayor. I forget the name of the city, but Mary Jean, he just called Mary Jean up and asked if she could come up and help and kind of clean up some property that had been damaged by a storm. And she went out there right away, and they just wanted to call and let me know that, they appreciate the work that she does. So there's a lot of things Mary Jean does in Meeker County that isn't going to show up on this report. But I do understand that this report does not, well, like Andrew said, there's declining numbers for crews. And that is a concern that we have as well. I do think there's still a benefit to this program. I think, there's a lot of ways. I know the state wants to be really good partners with Meeker County to try to make sure that, going forward, if the contract was approved, we'd be good partners with Meeker County, try to be good stewards of this program to make sure that financially this is a benefit to Meeker County. I understand that, there are varying opinions on that. But I guess, do you guys have any questions for me? I know Mary Jean wants to speak as well.
So Mr. Chair, I want to be clear. We love Mary Jean. This is not about you, not for me, and I don't think anybody, this is not about any one person. This is about a program that was very robust that is no longer robust. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I believe the state has become soft on crime. I believe people are deciding not to do this. They're paying their fines, and this is not about you, Mary Jean. I love you. You realize that, right? So when we keep saying Mary Jean, I wish we would say sentence to serve, because we're not here to judge Mary Jean's work. I'm judging this program. I just want to be clear about, and I think everybody here feels that way, right, Paul?
Yep, you speak.
Right. So I just want to be clear about that, Mary Jean. This is not about you. I watch the work you do, but I also see you out there by yourself, working, and where are the people that are supposed to be in this program? So that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mary Jean, do you wanna, we'll allow you some time to talk here.
Well, I was just saying that, I just wanted, I understand, and I do love this program, and I know you understand it, that it is the program, it's not about me or my conduct, but there's such a need to get more people, and, and maybe I don't understand, in the courts being ordered, I know that they get options, but it's just, it would be, I believe that, for me, I'm just gonna say is that's really how it was intended. It just seems like I love being able to work in the parks, don't get me wrong, and even just working, being available, but if I could just get that key factor of getting people back, so I can keep on continuing, getting jobs tackled and finished, but I do totally understand that it's the program, and we all are taxpayers, and if it's not viable, then we need to look at different options. That's how I was, but I do a lot of not special, I shouldn't say that, but for people that count on me, the program, that they don't, everybody else, and that's why in case the program goes away, I just want to make sure that they're taken care of, that's all.
And that's one of the things I was trying to get to, is there's a lot of people that do depend on Mary Jean, and I get that this is not none of this is a reflection of Mary Jean, but the reality is Mary Jean has turned the STS program in Meeker County into a lot of work that only Mary Jean would do, that other STS crew leaders that we have across the state would not do the things that she's been doing in Mary Jean in Meeker County. So while this isn't a reflection of Mary Jean, I completely understand. The STS program in Meeker County, its successes have a lot to do, if not everything to do with Mary Jean and the work she does. Its failures are not on her, but she has kind of become, and the work she does is kind of an integral piece to a lot of what people depend on. And I know she had people, I think 3 individuals, show up, in support of her and the work that she does, because the work that she does matters to them and to their community. So.
And I'd like to limit anybody else who wants to speak to like 3 minutes, just so we keep moving along. But Mary Jean, if you have somebody that wants to speak in support, we'll give you a couple minutes.
Okay.
Please come up. And identify yourself so we can get you in the minutes and stuff.
We're going to be talking about the STS program now, right? Or not?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm Rochelle Bromond, and I am the Meeker Outreach Worker for United Community Action Partnership. And I work alongside a lot of the same folks she probably would. I work with folks that battling addiction, lower income. And so I have seen in working with these individuals that she is a role model for them. And a lot of the people that I serve, I am in charge of the Meeker County Holiday Project. And we serve close to almost 600 children every holiday season. And without Mary Jean, it is really difficult because she's a workhorse that helps me get things to where they need to be so I can get this project to fulfillment. And also I am in charge of the back to school program, which again are people that we serve together. A lot of those folks have challenging things in their life. So she is instrumental getting those supplies to where I need them to be so I can get them into the families that are lacking in school supplies. And I work closely with the school, like social workers, and she helps me do that too. Also with our thrift store, which is also, it really does help our low income folks because it is reduced prices and all that kind of stuff. But she is instrumental, and the program is instrumental to help us just do what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keith? 3 minutes, Keith. I am gonna time it.
Here I is. But anyway, I'm Keith Johnson, 626 Turnberry Lane. Been a lifelong resident of Meeker County and also the city of Litchfield. This young lady has made a big difference in our life, my life, and for a lot of people in Meeker County and also in the city of Litchfield. As I look back on the program that Sentence to Serve has been for this county and for the city and for the people that have been involved with Mary Jane through this program, it's a program that is so visible that it's hard to not really jump up and down about the goodness of the program. As we look forward to the situation with Sentence to Serve, I know things have changed because of COVID, because of judicial sentencing, because of the fact of inmate rights and stuff like that. It's caused a difference. But this young lady has proved that she's a valuable employee. And I think that going forward, if you can find a way for her to stay with the county and work with them, you're going to have a valuable employee that you know is reliable, has love and passion for what she does. Now, there are 2 programs in the legislature right now, the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Reinvestment Program, and also the Juvenile Rehabilitation Program. If these come to fruition like they are in the state of Colorado and Minnesota, there will be a possibility for her to move into that position in a help situation. So I'm just here to tell you that this lady has made a difference, and I hope that you can find employment for her, even if the Sentence to Serve is a situation where it has to be laid down a little bit here. Because I know programs change and things happen. And being involved as a mayor, I know how that works. And she's been a great help to me in so many ways. I don't even want to take the time to tell you. It's invaluable. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Keith. All right, do we have any questions for Mary Jean?
I have a couple in terms of the STS. I know this board has brought it up 2 years ago, so we're kind of at the same point in terms of that, and where we're going through the COVID part. So then we knew the numbers were down, and it was basically kind of giving everybody kind of a area to like say reflect and say what can we do to improve this. I'm wondering if we do approve this again, what are you going to do to actually reflect the numbers on the STS part? And I'm looking through because half the budget I think is put towards parks. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And I know we're down hours on parks and stuff, and I'm looking through here, and just a disclaimer, I'm not gonna criticize the Lutheran Church being a Catholic.
No.
Just to put that out there, I'm not bitter about that part. I'm just trying to figure out how do we fit our needs with STS and what you guys are actually gonna do to improve numbers if we approve it, because no matter what, if we keep STS, Brady is still down hours in parks, and we have to fix that part of it too.
What I'd say first, 2 years ago, I was not in this role. My predecessor, I think, was nearing retirement. I don't want to speak ill of her because I had her as a supervisor once, and she was great, but I think she was probably less engaged, especially with maybe the Meeker County STS program. You know, I essentially do the same thing that Les does in Meeker County. I supervise probation and parole offices in, you know, Carver, McLeod, and Sibley County. And when I first started, there was a ton of training. I mean, I'm getting pulled in a million different ways, and I know there was a point where I met with Brandy and Andrew, and I was still kind of in that point of learning a ton and probably spinning my wheels a lot. What I can say is I've had conversations with Les that if this would be approved, Les and I would definitely make it a priority to explore any option that we possibly could. You know, if it involves, you know, Les and I need to sit down with, you know, Judge Beckman, with the county attorney's office, address maybe practices with agents. It's something that we definitely would do. And you know, I'll sit up here and apologize that, you know, in the first 8 months of me doing this job, I've had so much other stuff doing, you know, I mean, 120-hour trainings and just spinning wheels, where I feel like I'm now finally getting my footing where I can more confidently sit here and tell you that it can be a priority for us to make sure that we're trying to figure out how we can make improvements to see that happen. The other thing, you know, I mean, and if we fail in that, I'll come up here and say we failed in it. And, you know, I'll take that, because the reality is, if the program fails, like I said, it's not because of Mary Jean. Any successes this program has in Meeker County is 100% Mary Jean's doing. Any of the failures of this program may have has nothing to do with her and falls on other people, including myself. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about, you know, issues that with legislation coming out of St. Paul that might be impacting that. You know, I mean, that if that's true, that still has nothing to do with Mary Jean. But I can say that, you know, now I'm in a place where, in the conversations I had with Les, where we would definitely prioritize and explore every option we have to try to get those crew numbers back up for Mary Jean. Because when I talked to Mary Jean, she desperately wants those numbers. You know, when she was talking, because she loves the work she does, and she wants to have more people on her crew. One of the things that hamstrings Mary Jean is, probably one of her most common crews that she'll get is one male. Due to policy changes that the DOC made for crew leaders, Mary Jean can't take out one single male. She could take out one single female, but she'd have to have a crew of at least 2 males to go out and take a crew. It's something that's kind of hamstrung her, and if we can get a little more vibrancy, where maybe we're getting 2 crew members, you know, she won't have to like turn people away or send them to independent work sites, where, you know, we really do want to make improvements to this program. Not just because we believe in the program, specifically to this. I don't have another crew leader who is probably as passionate about this program as Mary Jean is. You know, I have other crew leaders who, they do the work, but I don't think they've done the work to make themselves as invaluable to the community they live in as Mary Jean has. And I know, again, this isn't about Mary Jean, but I will say having a crew leader like her leading that crew is far more valuable than probably some of the other counties get, because they just have a crew leader who shows up and does their 10 hours in crew and does their work and takes off, and they get assigned their projects. Mary Jean goes out there and she looks and she works and she does, you know, a lot of things that are a benefit to the community. So I can't tell you that 100% I know I can get the numbers up, because that would be me blowing smoke, and I'm not going to do that. I can tell you I can make it a priority and do everything that I can to try to get those numbers up, and if that doesn't work, then I'll come back and own it.
Mr. Chair, this sounds a lot like a conversation we had last time, so I'm just gonna say again, this is not about Mary Jean.
I know.
The mayor had a great idea. I would hire Mary Jean in a heartbeat. This program is no longer working for various reasons that I'm not gonna get into. My vote is gonna be the same today. I don't see it improving. If I see this program come, and it isn't even about the money, it's about a program that is no longer working, no matter whose fault it is. When it comes back and it's a robust program, I will be very glad to support it again, because I actually believe if there's something preventative that can happen, I'll vote for it, and sometimes that costs money. That's not happening anymore. So I don't have any questions, I just think they're gonna have to find a new way. That's all I'm gonna say.
I completely understand your point.
Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on Danny's comment a little, pretty much what I was going for. Les and Sean, I mean, I've spent some time talking to Brandy and kind of contemplate, because what I've found, everybody supports the program, and that's what we're hearing. I mean, locally, at a local level, everybody supports the program. The disconnect seems to be between the DOC and judicial and sentencing. And what do we have? Is there anything, as Keith mentioned, some legislation, and I'm on public safety, and I know that they did change. I mean, the priority they are gonna put some more funding into probation and corrections. I don't know if any of that spillover is gonna come into any of these programs that you guys work with right now, but what type of guarantee, and that's a loose word right now, but I mean, what do we have to document, if you will, that from DOC's side, that, and Judge Beckman sent an email to in support of the program, and Bill gave us a letter. I mean, I understand all that, but what do we have that we can sit here and say, okay, well, we know we're heading in the right direction at least, and that, you know, we can support this program for 2 more years?
Well, in my opinion, at least part of what Sean talked about was this disconnect over several years, part of that being the pandemic. But making those connections again to understand where some of those issues are that have created this problem, and part of it has been sentencing, and we've talked to Judge Beckman about that, and she's indicated her support for the program, and that she would be willing to order SDS. So in the past, you've been given some choices. I know that one of the arguments in the past has been there's not a lot of teeth in the program itself, that if you don't show up for SDS, what really happens? That's something that we probably need to continue to talk about.
Can I just interrupt you? Whose fault is it that there's no teeth in the program? Because I got the same email from Judge Beckman, and we discussed this a year ago, and I'm not blaming Judge Beckman, but somebody isn't making this program work in this county anymore, and to hear, well, it was a past supervisor or whatever. I'm just saying, I think there's a much broader picture, and I don't think I wish I believed that this program was gonna change. I do not. And so I go back to your question, who was supposed to be putting teeth in the program?
So first of all, you have to define what teeth is, right?
Well, no, you brought it up, so
Correct.
I'm
just saying
asking
that's
you.
what's said a lot, outside of here, but I'm just saying you have to define what teeth is. And so it's about punishment,
Okay.
right? And if you only make the basis of SDS about punishment, then I don't really think you will continue to be successful. Really, the whole premise behind community work service is to help individuals develop some sense of value in the community.
Right.
So hopefully,
Right.
They'll think twice about doing more damage to it. So if you just make it about punishment, though, you really don't get at that thought process that we're trying to actually get at. And so you redefine how you look at that statement. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that, I'm saying that's what's said a lot of times, and that's because the thought stays where it's at, that it's a punishment program, and I think that's part of what's helped to kill it. We have to really think of it more in terms of trying to get the point across, that this is about building value in the community, understanding why people think the way they do. That's a big part of what the direction corrections is headed right now, because if you just look at what we've done in the past, our successes aren't all that great. I've seen a lot of the same people over the years continually being on supervision and continually being in trouble. So obviously we have to rethink how we approach the situation. And so, you know, when I said it depends on how you define teeth, what are we trying to accomplish? And that's why I'm saying we rethink that a little bit. We present the program in a more, in that kind of a light rather than, you know, when you see, I had one of my support staff say, oh, that's that program where they put people in there to embarrass them so they won't commit crimes anymore. I really don't want it seen that way, you know, but I do believe it has been seen that way in the past. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. And then when people don't show up, you know, what do you do about that? That's one of the other things that we're struggling with to try and figure out what's the best approach. Because obviously, if you just threaten with jail or you just throw in jail, it doesn't accomplish the same things today that it used to 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's pretty evident.
Well, that may be because they don't keep them in jail. Maybe that's the, I mean, that's a whole different discussion.
Correct, that is a whole different discussion.
Which
but,
we don't
it goes back
have
to the
time for.
very beginning that when you put people in jail, they're gonna get out eventually. So what do you do?
But, you know, I used to see them walking up, I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful program. But what I see now is Mary Jean driving alone in a van, pulling a trailer with a lawnmower because nobody is participating. That didn't just start, we had this discussion. I'm not gonna repeat myself, but.
And I completely understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
I believe that on May 2nd, we laid the motion on the table. So I make a motion to bring that motion off the table, up for discussion again.
All right.
Gonna need a second.
I will second that.
All right. All in favor of the motion to bring
back on
the May 2nd
Make a
motion back to the table, on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And let's revisit that motion just so everybody's clear on the motion from May 2nd.
Now we can have discussion.
Yeah.
I did the letter from Judge Beckman where she requested to consider allowing her some time. It did strike with me. However, once again, that doesn't mean one thing is going to change. You know, and that's my fear. The program, by no fault of anyone working the program maybe, has just become ineffective. And I think Parks is suffering. We're maybe not getting, you know, what we anticipated when we approved this 2 years ago. So even though it's a good program and the folks that are working it are doing a great job, we have to have people to work with. And they're just not getting them from the courts. So
I was pleased when we tabled this because I was riding the fence. Just looking at basic numbers, I went home and did some basic numbers, and Meeker County pays over $77,000 for basically one employee for this program. And then the state kicks in another 25%. So the program in Meeker County is somewhat 110,000. I'm just rounding off figures. We could have a full-time employee for $62,000 a year. We could have a part-time for $40,000. I did the math with some of the figures that were given to us at our meeting 2 weeks ago, and I figured that we are paying $77,000 for about 86% of a full-time position. So that we're paying 86% of a full-time position. There have been 2 years given to this program to pick up the pace. I have not seen that happen. And I was thankful that we had a little bit of time to do some more contemplating. And right now, as of yesterday, there are 28 openings in Meeker County for employment. So there would be opportunities for folks to possibly apply for additional positions. That's taking all personnel out of the equation and just looking at some figures. And I appreciated the time to do that. Thank you.
No, I've spent quite a bit of time on this too, because I think the value of the program itself, and the program in theory is a great program. The program in function is where we're having the issue. And I have a hard time, because I've been supportive of the program in the past, and I think it's in the numbers and the work numbers, and they're affecting Mary Jean, they're affecting Braden. I mean, they don't have the people to work with. My position, the one thing I will say I disagree with in Judge Beckman's email was, and I ain't gonna get it exact, but there's a sentence in there about, the conflict between work and pursuing work, this program interfering with that. I disagree with that, because what happened to the day when you had teeth in the law that, no, you have to work and you have to do SDS and you have to figure it out, and if it's Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, that's, an irrefutable fact, you still have to do your SDS.
That's right.
And that's the problem I had. So as long as that concept is in the law, you're not gonna have an SDS program that's functioning effectively. And that's nothing on DOC, that's nothing on Mary Jean. So that's the issue I have now. As a county, will another employee or employee and a half to help out parks and highway, or wherever we place them, is that gonna be cheaper for the county? No. But at least we have people that we know we can count on to do the work. I mean, will SDS change in the future with probation and stuff? In the legislative, I'm not real optimistic. And the things that, when I sit down in St. Paul on some AMC public safety meetings, it's pretty hard discussions. So I'm ready to vote myself.
I would call for the question, Mr. Chair.
I have a call for the question. So, what is our motion here?
So I reviewed the minutes, and what the
Yes.
minutes reflect is that the motion was to table the discussion, so we would need a motion on the actual item. Because I believe we withdrew the previous motion.
I don't
as
think
we went
that
through.
No, we tabled the motion.
We tabled my motion.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, the
she-
minutes reflect that it was tabling the discussion. So if you would like to make a motion as to what you would like to do today, that would be an appropriate thing.
I would make a motion that we do not renew the sentence to serve contract for the next 2 years.
I have a motion by Commissioner Olberg.
I will second that.
I have a motion, a second by Commissioner Bredesen. Is there any further discussion or questions on the motion?
For clarification purposes, the current contract that we have now, termination could be upon 30 days written notice to either party. But the motion currently is to not renew the contract. We don't have a current contract before us. So that contract ends June 30th, so the county would essentially be giving more notice than the 30 days that's required. And so is the intent to fulfill this contract?
My intent would be with that we fulfill the current contract and not renew.
And we have,
I
you agree?
will agree to
All right.
that amended.
Thank you, Brandy.
Is everybody clear on the motion before us on the table? With that, we'll take the vote. All in favor of the motion to discontinue or not renew the current contract with DOC and the SDS program, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And just to clarify, it wasn't to not renew, because we don't have a current agreement before us, so it's just to,
We will be discontinuing the program as of June 30th.
June
How's that?
30th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I genuinely appreciate you guys'
No, and
Thank you.
we'll see where,
I hope something
where it
changes.
leads. Yeah, where it leads. Appreciate it. All right, are we gonna take a few minutes?
Mr. Chair, it's up to you if you would like to take a break now. or
I'd
if
like
you'd
a
to-
coffee, just quick.
Yeah.
That'll take me
We've
10
got
seconds.
9, we're ahead of schedule by 8 minutes.
Wow.
I was timing people here. 'Cause I know how,
Get out the little stopwatch, yeah.